Welcome to our second lesson in understanding culture, society, and politics. In this topic, we're going to understand what culture is. At the end of this lesson, you are expected to number one, understand culture as an anthropological and sociological concept, and number two, demonstrate a holistic understanding of culture and society. You might have had your Civica at Cultura subject back in elementary days, making you acquainted with what culture is. As you grow older, you might have noticed some of the unwritten or unspoken rules in the community that you live in. For example, in riding a jeepney, passengers are expected to move in to give seats to those who just got in, or to pass the fare or the pamasahe of those passengers sitting near the entrance so it reaches the driver, or saying para to let the driver know that you wanted to get off. All these is just the tip of the iceberg or just a glimpse of the social phenomena that we call culture. Culture, as defined by Sir Edward Burnett Tyler, is that complex whole which encompasses beliefs, practices, values, attitudes, laws, norms, artifacts, symbols, and knowledge that a person learns and shares as a member of the society. Sa madaling salita, ito ay mga paniniwala, mga bagay na nakagawian na, mga bagay na sumisimbolo sa isang komunidad sa mga pagdiriwang, pagkain, uri ng pananamit na natutunan ng isang tao mula pagkabata bilang isang bahagi ng komunidad. At ayon naman kay Geert Hofstede, culture is the collective programming of the human mind, which distinguishes the members of one group or category of people from another. It is a system of collectively held values, a glue that holds the society together. There are several aspects of culture. In this lesson, we are going to identify 6 of those. Number 1, culture requires language and other forms of communication. Language is a key factor in the success of human race in creating and preserving culture. Without language, the ability to convey ideas and traditions is going to be impossible. Language is the core of all culture. Every culture has a spoken language. If you identify to more than one culture, then most probably you speak more than one language. But the language that we're talking about here does not only refer to a formal language like English, Filipino, Spanish, Korean, Mandarin. It may also refer to informal languages, like some of the informal language that we Filipinos have been accustomed with, such as Jejemon, Bekimon, or the gay lingo, text language, or the way we abbreviate text messages, which started way back when cell phone text messages were limited to 120 characters. It may also be the language that we often hear from your classmates or your friends, or sometimes you yourself speak, like arat, aport, arep, prepa, alaus arep. Did I say it right? Number 2, culture can either be shared or contested. Although culture is developed from shared experiences, not everyone in the society will accept a culture. Let us go back to the Jejemon language example that we have discussed earlier. There are some who might have liked that way of communicating, but there are those who may not appreciate it, find it funny, or even question or contest its substance. The third aspect of culture is it is learned and transmitted through socialization or enculturation. As we grow older, we get acquainted to the norms and the practices in the community that we live in. We learn which patterns of behavior are acceptable within the society, and this process is called socialization. Through socialization, we adopt the culture, and this is called enculturation. What is the difference between the two? Let us put it this way. Kung halimbawa ay lilipat ka ng tirahan sa ibang lugar, of course you would research about their traditions, their customs, and culture for you to know which behaviors are acceptable or not. Or if they speak a language different from your mother tongue, you will always try to learn that language because of the desire to be accepted by the community. And as you socialize with them, eventually you get to adopt their culture, speak the same language that they speak as if you were born with it. And this process is called enculturation. Culture is a set of patterned social interactions. Most people adapt to the complexities of culture from the environment they are in because cultural behavior and actions can only be learned through observation, experience, and education. For example, wearing maong, eating balot, and other street foods are assimilated through experience, while kissing the hands of grandparents or pagmamano is taught through generations. Culture is dynamic, flexible, and adaptive. This only means that culture is constantly changing or nagbabago. No culture is permanent or static. The rate of cultural change among societies in the world varies depending on their geographical, economic, social, and political conditions. Lastly, culture is integrated and at times unstable. Dahil sa patuloy na pagbabago sa kaugalian ng tao, nagiging unstable ang kultura. May mga bagong techniques at kaugalian na natututunan tayo at dahil dito, ang mga lumang kaugalian ay napapalitan o kaya ay tuluyan ang nakakalimutan. Halimbawa, ang pagmamano. Our grandparents used to be very strict with that pero ngayon hindi na masyado. Merong ibang lugar na hindi na ito ginagawa. There are two types of culture. Number one is material or tangible culture or mga bagay na nahahawakan. And number two, non-material or intangible. What are the examples of tangible culture? These are tools, weapons, instruments, and dresses, and etc. While non-material or intangible culture are ideas, beliefs, perceptions, traditions, etc. A subculture may be defined as a modified culture within a larger culture practiced by a society. Example of this is the love for music. It is a culture observed in many societies, but as time goes by, several subculture of rock music has emerged. Examples are punk rock, alternative rock, metal rock, glam rock, and many more. Now, when a subculture is in conflict with the dominant culture, it is called a counterculture. One example of counterculture was the hippie movement during the 1960s. The hippies, as they call themselves, rejected the mainstream culture in producing music. So, what they did is they produced a new genre of music. Rebels, juveniles, delinquents, drug lords, pushers, terrorists, and other groups involved in illegal activities are also examples of people exhibiting counterculture. Ideal culture is the culture that people want to practice. It is how they tend to describe or want their way of lives to be, while real culture refers to the actual behavior of the people in the society. One perfect example of this is pagmamano and saying po and opo as a way of showing respect to the elderly. Many youths nowadays tend to forget this Filipino culture of showing respect. And this actuality in the modern Filipino society is their actual culture, while their ideal culture is pagmamano and saying po and opo. Culture has 5 elements. The first element of culture is symbol. Culture involves a variety of symbols. A symbol is anything that is used to stand for something else. People who shares a common culture often attach a meaning to an object, sound, gesture, or image. Halimbawa, ang cross o ang krus. Ito ay hindi lamang dalawang piraso ng kahoy na may hugis na letter T sa mga Katoliko, but instead it represents the entire basis of their entire religion. The second element that represents a culture is language. Language is a system of words or symbols used to communicate with other people. This does not include formal language alone, but also slang and informal language. Take English as an example. Although it is fluently spoken both in America and Britain, there are phrases that mean different things. For example, French fries in America is chips in Britain. Cookies in America are biscuits in Britain. Sa Pilipinas naman, bagamat parehong Tagalog ang salitang ginagamit sa Maynila at Batangas, may mga salitang magkaiba ang kahulugan sa dalawang lugar. Halimbawa, sa Batangas, pag sinabi na ako yayaon na, ang ibig sabihin ako ay aalis na. Ngunit kung ito ay sasabihin ko sa isang taga Maynila, maaaring iba ang maging kahulugan nito. Values is another cultural element. Values are culturally defined standards for what is good or desirable. In simpler terms, values help shape a society by suggesting what is good and bad, beautiful and ugly, sought and avoided. The fourth element of culture is norms. Norms are culturally defined expectations of behavior. At any given situation, there are things that we consider appropriate or not. Halimbawa, sa public toilet, pag maraming gumagamit, we are expected to stand in line and wait for our turn. Pero pag may sumingit sa pila, madalas tayong naiinis dahil hindi siya sumunod sa norms o sa ugali na inaasahan na ipapakita niya sa pagkakataong yon. There are three types of norms depending on their importance and how others react to their violations. Some norms are written into laws, and some are unwritten, which can either be folkways or mores. Folkways are the behaviors for routine or casual interaction. Halimbawa, nakasanayan na natin na hindi dapat itaas ang paa pag kumakain. And although we find this behavior gross or bastos, people who do this don't get imprisoned. Mores, on the other hand, are norms that dictate what is morally right or wrong. Kumbaga, mas formal kesa sa folkways. Although they are not written like laws, ang violation ng mores ay maaaring maging dahilan upang ang isang tao ay maging hindi katanggap-tanggap sa isang komunidad. Halimbawa, ang tumawa ng malakas habang nakikipaglibing. Lastly, beliefs. Beliefs are means by which people make sense of their experiences or ideas that people hold to be true, factual, and real. Beliefs can be classified as non-scientific and scientific. Non-scientific beliefs were mostly developed by traditional societies and in most cases are based on religious, mythical, and or metaphysical ideas that try to explain the realities of the world, cosmos, and even the universe. Examples of non-scientific beliefs are bate, kulam, usog, barang, and the likes. Scientific beliefs, on the other hand, are practiced by modern and developed societies on the need and desire to solve the practical day-to-day problems and challenges of living. Scientific beliefs work in the premise that every phenomenon is a logical cause of a preceding event related to it, not because of a supernatural intervention or being. People have several orientations or ways of viewing other cultures. Ethnocentrism pertains to the belief that one's native culture is superior to other cultures. Many Filipino exhibit ethnocentrism towards non-Filipino culture. For example, in most Western culture, it is normal for a child to call her parents by their first names. However, in the Philippines, this is rude as we Filipinos are used to honoring our parents by calling them mama, papa, nanay, tatay, or by using po and opo when talking to them. In this regards, we tend to judge other cultures' way of showing respect to other or to their parents, thus being ethnocentric. Sinocentrism, on the other hand, is the opposite of ethnocentrism. It is the belief that one's culture is inferior to another culture. A xenocentric person usually has a high regard for other cultures, but is embarrassed by her own culture. Cultural relativism is viewing other cultures as neither inferior or superior to avoid highlighting personal biases. Cultural relativism requires an open mind and enthusiasm to adapt to new cultures. An example is an American traveler who encounters balut for the first time. And although he was already told what balut is and never tried eating it before, he never looked at it as gross or terrifying, but tasted the delicacy to get acquainted to it.